If you don't shut the f up, I'm gonna tape your face and sew you to the floor.
Me and this mother ain't never getting along. This dude's out of his mind. We ain't doing this party.
Earlier we were talking about the 80s, and now I'm starting to think about this and how different like today is. Like growing up as a child of the 80s, I'm a child of the 80s, you're a child of the 80s. When I was a kid, my parents let me go outside. There were no phones, and I'm sure they did with you too, and nobody cared where you went as long as you came back for dinner at nighttime, right? And there was something and the pedals were metal, right? On the bikes. They would shave your shins right
Oh
off.
yeah, when they hit the shins.
And
Woo!
nobody had helmets. Everybody fell and busted their head open. I remember people having rocks stuck in their skin, everything, right? You went on
Rocks
to
in here. I still have scars here from rocks.
you went on to construction sites you didn't belong on. My
Yes.
cousins ate like silver, like coins and stuff. I mean, everything under the sun
Lighting
that
fires.
that would freak people out today, right?
Breaking glass.
So is there something to what I'm going to dig into now is going to lead into your business? There's something to that kind of grit and that kind of toughness that is built by exposing you to that type of stuff. Whereas like now people want to cradle everyone. We live in a world full of snowflakes.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say anything without offending someone. And sometimes people need to get their asses kicked, right? I mean, it's important. Because whether you like it or not,
I want to offend somebody.
life is going to kick your ass whether you like it or not. That's what I always tell people. Like, you can lock yourself in an ivory tower and try to hide and get a warm blankie, but that's not going to prepare you for life.
Mm-mm.
Like, you're going to meet assholes. You're going to get let down. Life is going to disappoint you. And it's like protecting someone and wrapping them in a blanket and giving them a bottle is not a way to prepare them for life. So there's something interesting about that generation, in that I'm so grateful that my dad was that way. It was just like, I think it built a certain level of character. Now it's a little more dangerous to let your kids outside, but I think I want to speak more to like the development of character and like that grit and like not coddling people so much, and how important that is in preparation for business. If you could dig into that a little bit from your own perspective. But
Yeah, I think with that type of pressure, I'm just thinking about my childhood and people around and everything. You make some and it breaks some. So it makes some great diamonds, but it also crumbles some people along the way, right? And I think that the environment was trying to get away from that, or just harnessing or like focusing on the bad part. But I think that, our team, and I think about our team, and I think about how we haven't been the easiest on them. Maybe we should have been or whatever, but we haven't been. And we lost some people, but the people we kept are so strong. Like they're unbreakable. Our team's unbreakable. I mean, that's what happens when you do that. And we didn't do it by design. We did it by accident, just because we were tough. We did everything the hard way. Tough on ourselves, tough on our team, small circle, but learn to open that up. But you still have to be able to apply pressure. And I think the time to do that's, early on in the interview process, within the rules, of interviewing.
yeah, I think I saw this guy's video, and I mean, it's kind of funny, but he's like, we live in a world full of snowflakes. I laugh about it. It's kind of true. It's not everybody, but I think like you said, there's a line, right? You could be too extreme one way, like too much pressure, too much pushing, too much of the iron fist also is not good. And then too much coddling on this side is also not good. So it's like trying to find that sort of happy medium, that center point where.
I want to come back to it, but I have a question.
Go ahead.
I haven't
Go ahead.
So I was watching Arnold Schwarzenegger's new series on Netflix. Did you watch that by chance?
It's like a documentary?
Yeah,
I haven't seen it yet. But
3 of them. So he was in there, and he grew up in Austria, and he was talking about how hard his dad was in the war. And back to what I was saying, and I know real examples of people that nobody knows, or not nobody, but not everybody knows. But Arnold said, he had a brother who ended up getting into a car accident and dying, but the dad broke the brother. He basically broke the brother, but he created Arnold. He created this monster. I was talking earlier to Shristi about, anything. He would just do anything, and he had that special grit. But there was also, the other side of that, and I've seen that. I've seen it in a lot of families. So I know what you mean, and I don't know what the balance is there. I think the balance there is the trust. You know, you can be hard on somebody um, if they trust you. One of the people in my company that I'm the closest with, I hate to even um, be hard on them, you know, because I'm harder on him than I am on other people, but he can take it. You know what I mean? And I'm not hard on him often, but when it's necessary, I'm extremely hard on him, and we respect each other. It's not a big deal. You know, I think that trust and that you can't do it too much. There has to be some respect there. You know, you
Yeah.
have to earn that over time, but you also have to be hard on people early on. And when they go in, and even when they're trying to create that barrier of you can't do that to me, that's the time to move in early. I haven't done it, but I've seen, you know, other people in the company do it, and I learned from watching them. They're like, no, 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 we're not doing that, and they move in on them, and they, you know, they're hard on them when they try to build that barrier of I can't handle that. You can't be hard on me. That's when you move in, and if they can't handle it, you're like, okay, growth stops. Growth stops. You're great where you're at. Everything's fine. Let's just back up. You don't want to grow anymore. When you want to grow, we're right here for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that get to
Yeah.
what we were talking about?
Yeah, yeah, it does. It's like you want to give them the support they need, but you also want to apply pressure when necessary. It's got to be both. It can't
Yeah, and
be
if you can't
can't be
apply
the iron fist all the time.
right, but if you can't apply the pressure when necessary and they're putting up barriers, but they're still a great asset, it's okay, but you're trying to apply pressure to push it to the next level to get more. And if they're not going to allow you to do it right then, you know, okay, for now they've reached their threshold. And I was talking earlier and I was saying, well, nothing will make you move more than somebody else taking pressure and creating success that you were ahead of. And I think that in an organization or in any environment that'll do it. You know, if a competitor or a coworker or somebody in the same field, if they took pressure that you didn't, but didn't have the skill you did, and they move along further and they get growth fast, and you see people paying attention to them and pour in their time and their assets into them, you feel like, oh man, oh now I want that. I kind of want that. And then if you're the boss or the employer or the owner or anything like that, you need to be fair. When they come back and they want that pressure now, give it to them. You know, if they open the door, you know, be there for them. You know, you shut them down, let them go. They come around, bring it back.
But I want to dig into more what we were talking about earlier, which was I think you said something along the lines of I was finished off in Ohio before I got to Virginia. And so I'd like to talk about your experience and growing up in Ohio and how that was different from the Virginia life.
I
Walk us
didn't
through
get
that.
finished in Virginia. Bradley got
No,
finished
you
in
got
Virginia.
finished in Ohio.
Yeah.
That's I want to hear about that.
I think I think here's what I think. I think looking back on it, I think I was around a bunch of wonderful people. I think that there was limited information at that time. When you see an opportunity coming from less opportunity, you take advantage of it. That's the upper hand I have. Is when I came to DC, the people that were the kids that were born and raised there that had, you know, everything, access to everything, they were extremely sharp, but they just didn't have the endurance. And I think there's a certain type of endurance that comes with that.
So that's what gave you
Having
the
less,
edge.
I think so, endurance
Yeah.
for sure. I don't
Endurance.
even think so. I know so. I have endurance. My family has endurance.
That's what takes you far.
Hmm. If I make a mistake, I'm not stopping. If I make 2 mistakes, I'm not stopping. If I make 10 mistakes, I'm really not stopping because I'm going to be sick about it. But I'm not stopping. And I've made more than that mistakes. You know?
Mistakes are important. People are like, they're like, how did you succeed? I'm like, double your rate of failure. Keep failing and eventually you'll succeed, right? Like you're going to learn one way or the other, right? You got to walk through it. If you're afraid of failure, you're never going to succeed. But if you're willing to fail, maybe you won't fail, but you have to be willing to fail and then you might succeed, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the idea.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely not scared.
Yeah, you got to be willing to keep
I
going.
maybe a little nervous, but never scared. New moves are exciting. The unknown, you know.
I think I like the unknown a little bit too much.
It's risky, right? It's risky. I know it is.
Yeah, I like to stand on the edge. I'm like, well, anyway, I don't need to do any research. I just jump right off. Fuck it.
Yeah,
We'll see what happens. Maybe the parachute will come out. Maybe it won't. So you got to watch a little. You have to watch that a little
100%.
bit. That's another one of those middle ground things. It's like a little too much pressure, not enough love and support, and then like not analyzing enough. Like my head's in the clouds and I'm thinking about the big picture and I'm like, fuck it, we'll figure it out. Let's go, like
Yeah,
let's jump out of the plane. So too much of that is also a little dangerous. So
yeah,
I think that's where the sort of team comes in, that there's a dynamic and harmonious structure within your team. It takes a team, takes a village to make it happen. Not one person does it, right?
hmm
There is every monolithic empire that ever rose fell. So having a team of, we were talking about earlier, tens in character, helps people like me. Like I have a team of tens. They help me stay stable, right?
hmm
Otherwise, I'd be a big fat head that just falls over like China on the edge of a table.
hmm
So I think it's interesting and important to have a team, a great culture, a beautiful culture of people that you could trust with great character that you can count on, and they help sort of complement and balance your traits. It's like this my first therapist told me, he's like, your strength is your weakness. You got to be careful. It's kind of a little mysterious in that, but it's true, isn't it?
hmm
Like the very thing, like you said, your willingness to kind of power through, break down the walls, and do what's ever necessary, which is what you developed by growing up in Ohio, is what led you to your version of success. But a little bit too much of
Well,
that,
it's
you might,
almost a little dysfunctional, right? Because you're
yeah,
so not scared of failing that you'll fail just to prove you can do it and keep moving. I mean, not like intentionally, but you just take a shot. I mean, initially early on, even, but I think we're past that point now. Everything's
yeah,
very systematic and thought out.
yeah. You're on the other side of the
We're
rainbow.
on the other side of the rainbow, and I think that looking back is why you want to teach other people, because it's going to happen anyways. They're going to learn anyways. Why not just go in there and do it?
Yeah, you might be able to save them some time with your experience, basically.
A lot of time and a lot of money, and maybe the difference between success or not, because maybe they might not have the endurance they need to make all the mistakes, but maybe they have a better skill somewhere else, and they can hope, or not hope, but harness that skill because you taught them this, or they early adopted these things that solve the problems.
Yeah. When you were in those situations where you were like in a pressure cooker, and like you said, you need that endurance. I know it's interesting you bring up that word endurance, and I'm like, God, I could totally relate to that. Where I'm like, I'm in a pressure cooker, I'm in a pressure situation. I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, fuck, this is fucked up. Can I get through this thing?
You
Like, and you're not really sure, but you just sort of hang on, and because you've done it before, you know that you can break through. And I'm sure you've had.
get that term from is when I see the modern worker and the modern workplace coming up. They're smarter than anything. They have more access to information. They have the skills, the brains, the guts. They have everything, but because of the speed at which they get everything, they don't have the same endurance. Like when I was younger and I wanted something, I might have had to wait a year and a half to get it. You had to look at a magazine, find a magazine, order it, wait 3 weeks for it to get there. Now you're just like scanning your face and you have it in your front door in 2 hours. You know, so I think that's kind of where endurance. I know that it's key, and I think that if you teach it to kids, or if you just talk about it and they pay attention to it because they're so smart and they know they need it, I think you can help them there. But I also think that they don't need it because they're so smart and the information's there so fast. So it's
Yeah,
really, I don't know, you know, where that's going to end up. We'll have to see. But I
yeah,
know
it's
that I
hard.
can save somebody time.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, right? Too much easy access and getting something too fast, like being expedient, sometimes can backfire on you. It's not always a good thing.
Yeah, makes you a little weaker.
I mean, I sure like it,
I,
but
I
I think
do. I
most
love
people
it.
like it,
Yeah,
Amazon being there in 2 seconds.
I love it.
Jeff Bezos knew what he was doing with that one,
Mm-hmm.
and he gets better and better at it. But yeah, there's something to that. Like, not, they call it delaying gratification, right? That's like
Mm-hmm.
the fancy term for it. There's something to like not getting the cookie right away, so to speak. Like It's something to like delaying that gratification. I want to dig into the business, the auto ballers. No, I'm kidding. I want to dig into the auto giants when we were.
The show or the business?
Well, I want to talk about the business because there's three of you, and you're all so different. Now I've spoken with all three of you. You guys are all so different in a good way, which I think actually it's like what we were talking about. It kind of adds this interesting balance, in a
Mm-hmm.
business. And so when I was talking with you before, you're like, I see myself as the glue, like the cohesive character in this whole
I did say
scheme.
that.
Yeah, and it's
I learned that from somebody else.
like let's talk about that a little bit. I'm kind of curious, like that's important, isn't it? Because you don't want people running 100 different directions with 100 different ideas, and everyone not being aligned philosophically. Or let's talk a little bit about the.
Well, I think for me, it was just almost my niche or what was needed. It's like, what can I do? Where can I bring value? And I can do anything, right? But I enjoy um, keeping a team together. I enjoy building a team. I also enjoy keeping a team together. And I know that sometimes people need a little bit of extra attention or a little bit of extra conversation, and it goes a long way. And it goes in and it ties into everything. If it's authentic, if it's bullshit, it's bullshit, right? But if it's real, it's real. You go in, you sit down, you talk to somebody. It's no different than a friendship, a relationship with my family, my wife, anything. If you're authentic, you go in, you sit down, you talk about it, you're accountable, you're building trust, and that trust goes a long way. When you ask somebody to do something, they trust you, they know you're asking for a reason, you're accountable, and you're talking to them, and you care about them just as much as you care about what the mission or the values or whatever it is you're trying to do. And I think there's a lot of trust that comes in there and being the glue. And when you see somebody maybe coming undone a little bit, it might be something they have going on personal, but you can always bring it back in, tie it back into the business because they're passionate about working. They're there all the time too, and income's necessary. You know, it might not be the most important thing, but it's a necessary thing. And if you can help somebody, through that time period, that's a lot of trust, I think.
What's the hardest decision you ever made in that position? That was the best decision you ever made. Can you think of one?
The hardest decision that I ever made in that position.
That turned out to be the best decision? One that you were unsure about, one that you thought you were going to be wrong about, but you were right about after all.
I think taking the emotions out of it, it happens all the time. I'm right about it all the time. I don't have a one scenario. I don't want to tie it down to one person one time. I think that, you know, maybe covering, taking my emotion out of it and addressing their emotions and letting them know how emotions can make you make bad decisions. And maybe somebody's not there yet, but they're going down that path, and you can kind of do a 1 minute redirect. But it might take more than a minute, but still, the redirection point, you talk about it, you talk about how these things could be, you say, hey, I feel like you could be going through this, and it's going to hurt me, it's going to hurt you, it's going to hurt the company. I want to be able to make sure you're comfortable here. I want to make sure that if there's something that we can help with, let's do it now. If not, then you can't. But I want to try and do that, and I think it happens all the time. I know it happens all the time. And it's really just caring about somebody, caring about their well-being, caring about even when you're upset, even when you're right, or even when they're wrong, it doesn't matter. They're still human. They still have emotions, and they still need a leader. And I think, sometimes you need to be a leader at that point.
Yeah, so it's like focusing on the culture that I want. Maybe now we could talk about culture. Like that's kind of what it sounds like, right? Keeping the culture together, making sure that everyone's aligned, keeping
I think
keeping it.
everybody pitches into culture in their own way.
Yeah,
You know, I think, you know, keeping it going, keeping the team intact, keeping the knowledge together, you know, letting them know that as a team we're stronger and they're part of that team. I think that builds the culture. Time builds culture too. When somebody comes into an organization and they see somebody who's been there for a long time and stays, they're like, people stay here. Why? Well, because they care about us. I care about them. I like them. I don't like this, but there's a lot I do like. Not me. I'm saying I'm just talking in third person, whatever. But
yeah,
I, I think that's where that comes into play there and building a strong culture.
yeah. Culture is important.
And the better it is, the harder it is to build on. But then once you get that momentum, the compound effect of the culture, it just kind of, you have what everybody wants. And that's where we're at, and it's a conscious decision. You know, let's work on our culture. Let's build a better company. Let's care about the people more.
Yeah,
The
that's
organizations that care about their people stand out. Period.
yeah,
You
they
know,
do. Absolutely.
time tested, battle tested, stress tested. If they truly care about their people, you know, it's like Hendrick. He's one. He was mentioned in the 21 Laws of Leadership, Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. He owns all the car dealerships, and the way his thing was people, 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 people. He's massive success. It's been around a long time.
What behaviors should one avoid in business in a leadership role?
You have to stay positive. You can't be cascading negative energy down. Even if you're having a bad day, I think that you have to drop down positive energy. You can't drop down negative energy. And I do it. I've done it. And then if you do it, you have to go in and correct it. You have to be a bit accountable for it. You know, like, hey, I was negative. I was saying this. It wasn't right. That's the only way to correct it. It's like real simple. Like, if I have a department head or somebody I'm talking to, and I know that they did something wrong when we were trying to implement something, and they're kind of trying to implement it, and they know that it's right, but they're still dealing with the fact that they already told everybody it was a bad idea. I tell them, I say, when I told you I didn't like this, or this was stupid, and then I realized later I was wrong, what'd I do? Like, well, you said you were wrong. I said, and then what? And then I asked you to implement it, right? But you couldn't do it. I couldn't have asked you to implement it if I didn't admit I was wrong when I said it was a bad idea. So I would just go in and be accountable to your entire staff right away. Get that out of the way right now. I think you can, that's the recovery from that negativity.
Yeah.
Because I can get negative.
Well, we all can.
Yeah, I don't like it,
We're all
but I
capable
can't
of
stay
it.
away from the business either. So I have to be there no matter what. I think you can protect a lot of that by protecting the culture and not having the people that bring that out of you around. I think early on, high producer bringing out that culture, not good, even for you, because then you can't lead the best you can lead because of that. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it's so important to have. We try to do the best we can to protect our energy here. How would you describe your company?
How would I describe our company currently? Hungry for more.
Yeah, and what is more? Where are you guys headed? What's the model?
The model is
Acquisition, expansion?
acquisitions. We need to get to $1 billion in revenue through acquisitions. I would say, for rooftops is a thing, like how many different franchises and rooftops, but I think it's more about revenue, at this point. So getting the right deals, the right locations, the right brands, and building that culture out. Making them manageable, making them interchangeable, seamless, where you can move the employees around, move the customers around, and really show how well we can work with any brand, any manufacturer, any employee, any customer, anything.
Yeah.
Just and when we get there and we're not doing good, let's go ahead and dig in. Let's be accountable and let's do better. And we really want to be able to take everything anything we touch. We want to be able to take it to the top place in the market.
Yeah, it sounded like you guys are going to scale pretty fast just in this year. I was talking with Joey a little bit.
Yeah, this year's probably going to be huge. I think
A big jump from where you're at top line to the new top line.
Oh yeah, the new top line will come down pretty quick. I think next year will be even more radical,
That's
but this
great.
year is going to be huge. The next 3 years is just going to be so much fun and so much work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're going to be busy, 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 but what's going to come out of it is just going to be, remarkable, epic,
Yeah, it sounded like
fun, exciting, hard, tough.
Yeah, scaling is always tough.
Uh-huh.
Like each level of a level up, you meet new assholes. It's like you go through a new door, and then the people that are in that sort of space, they're just waiting to cut your ass down as you're moving up, as you keep moving up. Fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to run into plenty of that.
So let's talk about role models. What role models do you admire? Earlier, I was talking about Charlie Munger, and who's gone now, and Warren Buffett, and there obviously are others. But who are your role models in business and or life, wherever? Any role models?
Uh, m- m- Joey is my number one role model. My big brother. He always has been. Period. Nobody will ever be a bigger role model to me than him. I don't care, you know. But other than that, um, I want to be a role model. I haven't always been. I want to be a role model. I don't know if that's the right answer to what you're asking me, but I want to be a role model. You know, I had children. You know, I think about it. You know, I think back over my entire life. Here's why I say I want to be a role model. This is what I was tracking towards is you're sitting back, and I sat back for many years, and I was like, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And I would watch the reaction around the room, and you can see they think I'm bullshitting. Like you actually think I can't do it, right? That's motivation. Now here's the thing. I wasn't being the person who could do that, right? I might have been somewhat of the person. I might have had the intellect, the ideas, but I wasn't showing it on every bucket, like Andy said. You know, fill every bucket. You know, every bucket. If you're not filling every bucket, you're not winning. And that was the thing, is really making sure that you're filling every bucket.
Yeah,
And you know, the way he said that, he brought that to light. You know, he's a role model. Honestly,
yeah,
he is. I would say. You know, the
yeah.
way he said, the way he broke that down, and the way he did it, and captivated everybody, and put that energy in them so that they could go do better. That's powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I have my brother that does that also. So you know, but to have somebody, you know, outside of family that would do that, yeah, I think that's huge.
Yeah. I mean, there are people that come to mind like this acquisition model is pretty interesting because there's people like, hey, let's build a company and let's dump it, and make that money. Let's get that cash and then move to the next thing. Then there's this sort of longer play, which sounds like this is your guys' model, where you're buying revenue essentially, like Schwartzman, BlackRock, um, Blackstone, and Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger.
Mhm.
That's kind of their model, right?
Mhm.
They bought See's Candy like in the 70s, and they
Mhm.
still own it.
Mhm.
And every year they just keep raising the prices, or Geico, or any number of acquisitions, and they keep buying that revenue, and it turns into this monster over time. So it sounds like that's your model, which I personally like that model better too. I don't think I'll
We're
sell.
builders also. I'll build, but
Yeah,
I think you know, if it's necessary, it depends on, you know, the real estate, the location, the brand, all that. But I think the acquisition model, you're gaining so much. You're gaining, you know, the good and bad of new culture, and
yeah,
then you're learning how to blend it, which is such a, you know, high return on your time when you can do that. You know, your investment on in yourself, and what you can do and what you bring to the table, the value you bring to the manufacturers, the value you bring to the employees, you know, the value you bring, you know, in the deal in general, all the way across the board to the banks.
yeah. I think people are misled when they talk about, like, I mean, not always, but in many cases, especially with social media, because you're just swiping, it's 30-second clips or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Young people, young entrepreneurs up and coming, oftentimes I think are misled to the reality of what business actually is. You know, be on a fast track to go to Hawaii, and lay on the beach with a cocktail with an umbrella
You're
in
gonna,
it.
you're
It's like
definitely not gonna be
probably
on.
not. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're blowing your brains out. If you're lucky, you break through and you get to that next phase. And so I just don't think people really realize what it actually is. And I think I've had a number of businesses now. I've built them, lost them, built them, sold them, everything in between. And I think there's an advantage to having done that, because when you go to do another venture, you understand. You're like, you know what you're getting into.
I think there's part of understanding the business, and I think that's a
Yeah.
huge thing. But I think for myself personally, the number one thing that makes this so much more exciting is the work I've done on myself. The people around me know I've done work on myself. I know I've done work on myself. My kids are young. They know I've done work on myself. And to be able to do that work and then bring that new better version of yourself to a new acquisition, and you're learning as you go, and it's just keeping you busy. The goal's huge. Let's look for $1 billion in revenue, then let's look for 3, you know. But the goals are huge and it's so exciting, but the work that you're doing on yourself creates so much strength and so much endurance, and it makes you so much better, that what you do for everybody else is so much better.
Yeah.
So even if you can have the best business acumen in the world, but you have got to be able to go in and develop yourself also on every level. Every bucket's got to be full. And that's when I think when those things come together, you're unstoppable.
Yeah, it's true.
And we're not at the unstoppable point, but we're not going to be, we'll be there soon.
Yeah, it's true. There's no better way to have an effect on your environment than to change yourself. It's obvious, right?
Yeah, the problem is me all the time. But
yeah, it's crazy how that works. Huh?
But I think too, one of the things what's so exciting about it is when I went to go in and develop, is I wanted to make sure, and I was trying to say this a little bit earlier, I want to make sure that I'm not that guy that says I could have done all that. You're 60, you're 70, and you're like, I could have done that. I watched him do that. I don't want to be reporting about all these people that did all these amazing things, and I was right there and knew how to do them. So I have to take action. And the first thing you have to take action on is yourself all the time. If you don't make that action the first one, you're not going to get the most benefit out of the next action, which is whatever you're trying to get done. So you have to balance that. And it's not just those two things, but in this scenario, our conversation, what we're talking about, those two things are it.
Yeah, it's like my wife will ask me sometimes, she'll be like, aren't you happy yet? And I'm like, she misunderstands that I'm just not satisfied. I'm happy. I
Fulfilled.
love my life. Yeah, like I just want to do more stuff.
Satisfied's a good one. I haven't used that enough.
Yeah, it's like I'm just, I have a list of things I'm trying to get to. That's all.
Yeah.
Well,
and she'll say, "Aren't you happy?" Sometimes my wife will, and I'll say,
yeah, she'll say, "Aren't you happy yet?"
I'm very happy. Yeah. I'm just not excited.
Yeah, I just want to go further. It's like I want the Wayne Manor library. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I want to live in Pelican Hill. I want my own card.
Yes.
I want a robe and house slippers. I want to smoke a pipe.
Yes.
I always wanted to pass out in a recliner in my study. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, the war room.
When I'm retired.
Yes.
And then have like my kids and my grandkids
and the
around me.
Yeah, everything, right?
My grandma used to pass out in her chair with pizza and Diet Pepsi. I was like, I'm so jealous, dude. And she smoked cigarettes like this long.
With the ashes
she's still
on them,
alive.
right?
She's still alive, dude.
That's funny you
I'm
say
like,
that.
she's living the dream, dude.
My grandmother's been smoking since the 80s, probably before that, and she still smokes.
Yeah,
you know what
dude,
I mean? She's
crazy.
95.
It's crazy. My mom died before her, and it's just like, and it's not that I want that exactly, but it's just sort of like, I have, the life to live is the one by design,
Mm-hmm.
and like I think I keep refining that, and I think all of us do. I think you have goals, you have these ambitions, and you have targets that you're trying to hit, and I think they change and they grow. But I think the one thing that I think about all the time, and I've been talking about a lot recently, and obviously you guys understand this, is that you have to be willing to execute without a clear purpose if you ever expect to get to where you want to go, to reach your goals, right? You may not have a clear purpose. You got to have the balls to fucking step in the cold water or step in that jungle of this unknown. And if you ever expect you're going to get to where you want to go, right? I mean, you got to be able to do it.
Yeah,
you got to be willing to do it.
You have to be willing to jump. I mean, if not, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, like this may or may not work.
Everybody that ever made it ever jumped when they weren't ready.
Yeah.
And, think about it like with kids. How often are people planning to have kids? And they made the best decision in their life,
Yeah, I wasn't planning on having kids.
Yeah. And then now what? Can't live without them.
My wife just hit me up about another kid today. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, I got 5 kids, dude. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, I think I'm sure. I think I might be sure. on that one, I'm sure. Yeah, no more kids for you?
Mm, no,
Yeah, I'm
no.
good. I'm good. Five's pretty good.
I
It
have
fills up a
two.
whole damn couch.
If my wife
That's
wanted to have
enough.
another kid, I would. If she doesn't, it's really up to her, you know. But we want to be
Yeah.
able to, enjoy the time with these kids and,
Yeah.
really focus on them, trying to make excellent human beings out of them and well-rounded, teach them everything. They're awesome. We're so lucky. We have, these wonderful children. You know how it is.
Dude, it's everything. I'm looking at the time because I want to go home to my babies actually.
Oh yeah, I'm here now, and that's the number one thing I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I
You know what I
haven't seen
mean?
them in 3 days. I've been gone.
I literally want to go home and watch a movie in bed with them.
Yeah, it's the greatest. I know
Mhm.
there's nothing like it in the whole world.